So, up here with Josh and Kevin. Got to do a couple demo rides. Probably going to do a couple more tomorrow. I got to ride a Blast M, so the Blast with the Alpha Rail. I got to ride a Riot X. I got to ride a 2020.5 Renegade XRS with the RAS X suspension. And I got to ride a MXZX 600R, so you'll see all those reviews kind of coming out as time goes on. Is your ass getting wet?
Yeah, a little bit.
You can put them up. Oh, wow. Well, that's how they work if you're curious. Alright, so my overview of the 2021 Polarises. Guys are about to see the same trail for the 100th time because conditions are a little questionable today. First things first, we have the 650 Patriot. The big news there, same bottom end and same length rod. Different pistons, different cylinders, different cylinder head. I believe they said smaller exhaust valves. It does have the 3-stage exhaust valve like the 850 does, which is apparently the key to why these sleds are efficient the way they are. My 850 can get 15 miles to the gallon. It's not like an everyday thing, but in a lot of conditions I see that much. The worst I see, like on a really warm or throttle heavy day, is like 13, so pretty good, I would say, for an 800 class sled. The big news there is it can run on 87 octane, so that I think is pretty cool for people that are, you know, running a 600 class sled. There's some value in not having to worry about getting 90. You know, you could still run 87 in a lot of the 600s, but 91 is often recommended. So cost of ownership should be a little lower. Price is a little high, $14,700 in the Assault, and it's only a SnowCheck engine. You can get it in the Indy XC in season, but in the VR1 in the Matryx, that's a SnowCheck only sled.
So it looks like the big difference between the Indy XC Launch Edition and the Indy VR1 are the 7S display coming on the VR1, whereas it looks like you just get the base gauge on the Launch Edition, as well as you get velocity shocks on the VR1, and instead you get the Walker Evans force shocks on the Indy XC Launch Edition. So that's where the price difference comes in, and if you get an in-season Matryx chassis Indy, that's what you can expect.
This road is shot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean.
Oh, this is the road?
Yeah. I don't know how far down it is in relation to the railroad tracks. Like, I don't know if you can get to it. We could like head back towards town and Eatontown tonight? Or, yeah, I
definitely don't want to ride that road. Still
wet ass jock over here.
Yeah, a little wet butt.
So would you rather go back 10 to Big Moose or just go back to town and eat?
Want to just go over to Big Moose?
Yeah.
And if we're still good on time, we can go back to town after.
Yeah, that's cool. Obviously, next up is the Matryx chassis itself. Pro CC skid. Interesting, the keys on the dash now instead of up on the console. Probably makes sense with that huge gauge. This one's a 650 Indy VR1.
It's more because of the way the console and everything is forward that they have to make all of this.
Velocity 2 shocks. Front end definitely looks like it can take the offset spindles. Rail stiffeners back there. Reoriented the recoil. So it's a narrowed axis. It has a updated front suspension per Polaris. It's updated forged spindle. It has the new 7S display with ride commands, so a lot of cool features there. A lot of diagnostic stuff. You got a GPS. You can track your friends if they have the ride command app. Cool stuff there for sure. It has the active, or I forget exactly, smart hand warmers. So you set a certain temperature and they maintain that. Kind of cool. My one thing with that I'm unsure on is, you know, I always kind of have mine on high, and very rarely do they actually ever get too hot. On the warmest days, you know, like kind of like today, they would get too hot, but most of the winter they would not. So something kind of interesting to keep in mind there. I don't know if maybe they have a higher hot and they can achieve a higher temperature or what, but definitely interesting. And a cool creature comfort for those that want it. The Pro CC rear end carries over into the VR1. You can get a 129 and a 137. It has the Velocity 2 shocks, so kind of like they don't call it an XCR. I'm assuming definitely less bracing and whatnot, but comparable with XCR shocks. A lot of the sleds remain in the Axis. In the Axis, you can get the 600 and now the 850 in season. You cannot get a Matryx in season other than that Indy XC that I was talking about. And like I said, I don't know how the ordering process works there, but it's cool to see that the 850 is now an in-season engine. I know that'll make some people pretty happy. I think for the most part, snow check and spring order are just such commonplace that most people will still do that, but for those that do not and want to get an in-season 850, get a little deal on it, you can do that now. Seemed obvious to me.
I thought it did too. I had no idea what you were saying.
Yeah. I didn't plug my goggles in, so I was like, oh, I gotta stop, and then I was like, I don't know if you want to pee or not, but Josh, like, this is the stupidest spot I've ever seen.
So how do I do a wheelie?
That one doesn't really do wheelies. No hands.
What?
No hands.
This one can't do a wheelie?
Not really. Mine does. But, sorry. It's a hot button topic with Arctic owners. They insist that it can, and I'm like, not when I try. You just gotta, like, from a stop, lean back, gun it. Should wheelie, but, yeah. If you go over, like, a little bump, too, it'll kind of get it started, so. Huh?
That's cheating.
It is cheating a bit. Yep. In awesome news, in my opinion, the Switchback Assault comes in the Matryx. I already made a video on that if for some reason you guys didn't already see that. And so cool to see Polaris, you know, paying attention to the crossover market and immediately bringing an updated sled to it and not making us wait a year. I feel like that's so commonplace nowadays when something new comes to the market. You know, crossover sleds, if they even get it the second year, that's like pretty good. Usually it's more like the third year of a chassis that you actually get some sort of crossover. I'm trying to think of anything else. On the Indies, they always had the big rear bag, same with the Assault, that, you know, took place of the that took place of the rear shock on the Pro XC sleds, and that's now gone. You take the seat off to access your rear storage bag. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I feel like it's kind of, it's good for stuff you don't need often, but like for like your hat and whatnot, I could see it kind of be annoying. But they've kind of replaced the quick access with a very large storage compartment behind the display, so that's a plus. You know, the Axis always had that little display up top, but really all hell were registrations. I couldn't even fit a set of goggles in it, and if I really forced it, I could fit a hat in there, but you know, it was hard because you always had that nice bag on the back. It was like, why bother, other than they could get a little wet. Do you want to try to wheelie mine over that bump?
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead. I did a pretty good wheelie over it, so I'm like, if you want to try to wheelie, that's your spot. Yeah. Woo! Mountain-wise, the Chaos now comes in at 165. I will like share my vague thoughts on mountain sleds, but I don't ride them, so you know, take them for what they're worth, I guess. I did talk a lot about the Summits because they had the 850 turbo, but with Polaris, there's nothing too eye-catching as far as what might make its way to the trail market. They switched to a 2.75-inch track, no more 2.6. It does have a different pitch. I can't remember the pitch off the top of my head. I think they said it's 3.5 instead of 2.86. So taller lug, space out a little bit more. They said that that's like the best performance they found in that track. Quick Drive 2 is now a SnowCheck exclusive. So if you SnowCheck, you'll get Quick Drive. If you do not, you'll get a chain case. It can come on the 3-inch now, and is supposed to reduce weight by 5 pounds, just like with the shorter sleds in the past. So that's definitely cool. Has a lower gear ratio, I guess. You know, not really a ton new as far as the mountain sleds seemingly go. The new track is obviously cool, and the Quick Drive 2 is cool. Like I said, I don't know a lot about mountain sleds, so I almost feel weird even talking about them, but you know, that's what they've talked about with the new sleds, so there it is. I imagine that the Matryx, this is kind of my speculation, is going to make its way over to the mountain sleds, as well as, you know, pretty much every sled in the lineup. I'll be curious if they still have the very large spot for the gauge on the Matryx mountain sleds, or if it'll be like reduced in size so that it can fit a smaller gauge, because you know, mountain guys don't really use those huge gauges. At least if you ask Skidoo, they don't, because they don't have them on any of their mountain sleds. They just have like a tiny little readout. I think it's so cool looking.
I think it's pretty.
Look how little the seat is on it.
I like that. This back little thing is funny looking.
Yeah.
So it's all the things that I hit.
Yeah, this has a very small gauge. It's just like what you need. It doesn't have like any extras. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Kind of my opinion on stuff, I'm very surprised the Matryx is actually heavier on paper, at least when it comes to the Assault, than the Axis was. You know, they talk about power to weight ratio a lot in all of the promotional videos, and you know, if you gain weight, I'm not sure how it improves power to weight ratio. But maybe they're talking more about like the 650 or something. Not the end of the world. It's not like a drastic difference, but it would have been cool to see a reduction in weight, or you know, at least maintain it. Don't go up and then talk about power to weight ratio. I have to say the prices on the Matryx are a little disappointing. You know, I think once I actually talk to a dealer, I might get an idea of a better price, but on paper, I've had a lot of guys tell me it's like a pretty big turnoff for them that the sleds, you know, spec'd out are costing over 16 grand. And, you know, just as more of these features come to sleds and they make them standard on top of that, the prices are just going to keep going up. And I do think there will be a cap and people will stop paying or stop buying. And with such a big jump from, you know, what Polaris offered, you know, before everything was an option. So you want a PIDD, you got it. You want an electric start, you got it. Now to make the 7S display standard, at least for this year, it's a big difference for some people. You know, the bargain buyer, they're looking at it and they're like, I don't know, I'm not sure it's worth it. But, you know, you're trying to push your new technology. You're trying to make that sled appealing to SnowCheck buyers because it's the main SnowCheck sled for them this year. So I understand why they did it the way they did, but I know I've had quite a few people say that they were pushed away from it because of the price. SnowTech magazine said that they feel the Assault Matryx is actually a little bit more tippy than the Axis Assault, so interesting. And I wish I could ride it to know like what would cause that. Maybe like you moving your body more on it. They said the main thing that they narrowed up on the Matryx was the gas tank. So a big complaint by Assault buyers for a while was that the tank felt wide between their legs. So now across all the Matryx sleds it's narrowed, but maybe that brings, you know, fuel up higher. They did lose half a gallon of fuel storage on the sled, so well, I don't think I'm going to get around these people. So I just want to say thank you again so much, guys. It's been an awesome season. The support is unreal. Like, I definitely do not say it enough, but you guys are just absolutely awesome. I think I have one of the most positive comment sections I've honestly ever seen. And just the 5K gang, you guys, I mean, I can't tell you how many times now my videos just get to 5K because I know I clearly have a consistent viewer base that is there to support me. And that feels great, you know. I want to keep this thing going, and I have so many, you know, ideas and plans, and hopefully I can just keep it getting bigger and bigger, and, you know, as I'm able to put more into it, you know, better trailer, all that stuff. Until next season, you guys are the best. Thanks for watching, Brap Gang.